And there are elements of graduate education that require similar guidance. The Mentoring at Purdue, or MAP program, is an initiative within the College of Agriculture to build a culture and a process that enables the best guidance and mentoring possible for our graduate students. More information on this broader initiative will be revealed in the weeks and months ahead, but at this time I'd like to turn the podium over to LaVon Esters, Associate Professor in Youth Development and Ag Education, to introduce our speaker and facilitator for today's events. LaVon.
Thank you, Dr. Duncan. Good morning. Bring greetings as well from the Department of Youth Development, Ag Education, and the MAP program. And so let me first start out by saying that this is the first of two events that we held today. This event that you all are attending is open to all faculty, staff, and students across the campus. And this afternoon's event, which is from 1:30 to 2:30, is for grad students only. So hopefully those of you who are grad students here right now have encouraged or can encourage your peers to come this afternoon. I'd like to acknowledge two other members of the MAP team, and that is Dr. Neil Knobloch, Associate Professor in the Department of Youth Development and Ag Education, and then Kristen Bodden here in the back, who is the MAP coordinator. And so these two individuals, in addition to Sean, make up the MAP team. So that said, I'm delighted to introduce our guest speaker, Dr. Renetta Tull, who will be delivering a presentation titled The Art of Mentoring, Promising Practices, Proven Results. Dr. Renetta Tull is the Associate Vice Provost for Graduate Student Development and Postdoctoral Affairs at the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, UMBC. She's the former Assistant Dean of Graduate Student Development, and she's Founding Director of PROMISE, Maryland's Alliance for Graduate Education and the Professor, AGAP, a program of the National Science Foundation. Dr. Tull earned the BS in Electrical Engineering from Howard University and both the MS in Electrical Engineering and the PhD in Speech Science from Northwestern University. She was an Anna Julia Cooper Postdoctoral Fellow and Assistant Professor of Communicative Disorders at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and a researcher in both the Weizmann and Trace Centers, Rehabilitation Engineering, prior to coming to UMBC. So without further ado, I'll bring up Dr. Renetta Tull.
Thank you. Thank you. Ooh, this is really loud. Maybe I can turn it down a little bit. Sorry about that. Well, I'd like to thank Dr. Duncan for the initial context, framing the issue, Dr. Esters for inviting me, Dr. Knobloch, who has been also a wonderful host, and Kristen Bodden, who has just taken care of all the different kinds of needs that I've had. I'm really happy to be here, and thank you all for taking an hour out of your morning to hear about mentoring. I'm going to talk about some of the best practices that we have employed in Maryland and some of the different statistics that I've been able to pull. We'll talk about some of the papers that we've been able to publish and some of the examples of mentoring that we've seen. Just to sort of set the stage and give you a little bit more about my background, I am part of the Office of Postdoctoral Affairs, the new director of that particular office, which began last year. In addition to being with the graduate school at UMBC, this particular PROMISE program is an alliance between UMBC, the University of Maryland College Park, and the University of Maryland at Baltimore. And so I'm the director for the statewide version of AGAP, and we have just put in a new proposal to try to employ some of these kinds of methods that I'll be talking about throughout the entire state of Maryland for all of the 12 institutions for the University System of Maryland. I'm also a liaison for the Chancellor's Office at Universidad Metropolitana, which is in San Juan, Puerto Rico, and I am a co-PI for an advanced project. So if any of you are with advance here at Purdue, we'll be learning from some of the best practices of your advance, and we have a paid project in Puerto Rico. It's called Advanced Hispanic Women in STEM. And then finally, with the Quality of Life Technology Center at Carnegie Mellon University of Pittsburgh, I work in rehabilitation engineering with a project there to work for engineering solutions for people with differing abilities. Just a little bit about the context of UMBC. UMBC is in Maryland, in the Baltimore area, and we are a mid-sized institution. We have about 13,000 students, but we are really excited about being named U.S. News World Report #1 up-and-coming national university. It has been the accolade for 2 years in a row. We have excellence in teaching, and we're named among the best value, one of the best values in terms of education, and also on one of the lists for being most diverse. I wanted to start the context, and I'm not sure if you can fully see this, but this is just some data. I went to the science and engineering indicators for 2012, and they have data up through 2009, and I wanted to see the diversity that was listed for agricultural sciences. And as I looked to see how many people were getting doctoral degrees in agricultural sciences, I'm going to go straight to 2009 because that's where I'm going to concentrate. That was the latest data. So in terms of people of all citizenships, race, and ethnicity, there are about 1,100 people who got doctorates in the field of agricultural sciences. And then you break that down to U.S. citizens and then to the different ethnic groups. And so you can see that when you look at the different ethnic groups, there is a disparity between some of the groups. And I concentrate on this. There's a reason that I concentrate on this for mentoring, because one of the things that we have been able to do in Maryland is we have been able to look at mentoring practices for a small group of underrepresented students, and then we've been able to use that and expand that so that we can have mentoring for all students. And we really focus on the idea of inclusive mentoring, but I wanted to start with the context because this is the kind of data that we used for STEM programs to really justify the need for going for the money for the National Science Foundation to say, if you look at the national averages and you look at the different numbers, we need some mentoring programs, at least starting with some targeted populations, but then we can use that so that all students can really benefit from the information. So if we pick this out, we can see that the disparities in terms of the numbers of people who are getting degrees in agricultural sciences for PhDs are Asian Pacific Islanders, Black, Hispanic, and American Indian Alaska Native are very low in comparison to other populations. And I wanted to list in agricultural sciences the percentages that these people, the different ethnic groups, represent in comparison. And if you look at, let's just pick out Hispanic students. So if you have 1,100 people who are getting PhDs in agricultural sciences, only 1.8% of them are Hispanic. And if you look at the national population of Hispanic students, it's 16.7%. And so what a lot of federal agencies are saying in terms of groupings is, let's see if we can get some of our data, our percentages in our various disciplines, particularly in STEM fields, to match the national populations. And so there's a long way to go in some of the areas, even in terms of making sure that we have talent here in the U.S. in terms of U.S. domestic citizens. I'm not going to concentrate on this too much because I really want to get into the programming, but I wanted to make sure that I at least gave you some of these numbers, and you can go and also look at the science indicators for gender as well. So at UMBC, we started a lot of our programs based on the Meyerhoff Scholars Program. The Meyerhoff Scholars Program started in 1988, and it was a program that was started by philanthropists Robert and Jane Meyerhoff. They got together with our president, Dr. Freeman Hrabowski, and what they wanted to do back in the 80s is they wanted to bring very talented African-American male students together in a cohort. These students would have gone to any other university, but they wanted to bring them together in a group and have them really progress in STEM fields, because there was, at that time, the beginning of looking at how we could increase diversity in STEM. And so they looked at the Meyerhoff program, they gave money toward that program, and after more than 20 years, that program has been very successful. It now has students from every ethnic background, and and they are dedicated not only to diversity, but they are dedicated to excellence. And this was one of the seminal projects. Dr. Freeman Hrabowski was on 60 Minutes recently, and he talked about this kind of program and how we were really looking for an opportunity to make sure that all students from all backgrounds had opportunities not only to excel, but to participate in research, to go on to get PhDs, to become professors, etc. And the idea was if you focused on areas where there were issues and where there were problems, then it could open up the conversation to see what other problems existed, and then we could expand programs to then serve, again, all people. And so this program started at the undergraduate level at UMBC. In the 1990s, they had the Meyerhoff Graduate Program, which focused on biomedical sciences, and that was sponsored by NIH. And then the Promise Program came along. We had GAN programs, the graduate assistantships in areas of national need. The IGERT program, we had an IGERT program, which really looked at intersections of disciplines, and we have one in environmental science and in public policy. The Council of Graduate Schools PhD Completion Project, where we were looking at all disciplines and all students to see what was really going on. But we got the PhD Completion Project to study the whole university, to study what was going on with all graduate students as a result of having these other programs first. So we had these programs to really focus on some of the smaller populations, but then from that we were able to grow that research and that work and get some other grants to look at what was going on university-wide. We also have the Lewis Stokes Alliance for Minority Participation, Bridge to the Doctorate Program, and these are funding projects, these are fellowship projects that either give fellowships to students or they provide programmatic kinds of seminars and fellowships. Some of them don't provide fellowships. The fellowships are within the research labs, but they also give other kinds of background support and mentoring. And so the retention activities that initially started for the underrepresented students has now been used as a model to support graduate student retention as a whole from all backgrounds. And the AGEP program in Maryland was really a big part of this. And so if you're new to the AGEP program, you have an AGEP here at Purdue, part of the Midwest Crossroads AGEP. But there are 22 AGEPs, these alliances for graduate education and the professoriate across the United States. And in order to be part of an AGEP, you have to be a PhD granting institution, and usually you have to have 2 or more PhD granting institutions that are part of your alliance. And so some of the other AGEPs, in addition to the Midwest Crossroads AGEP here, FACES was part of Georgia Tech and other schools in Georgia. There was the Peaks AGEP, which was part of Colorado and other schools in the Colorado system. There was a New York, Puerto Rico AGEP, HUTEP, which was Howard University and the University of Texas at El Paso. North Carolina Opt-Ed had all of the schools in North Carolina, and then there was a California AGEP for the state of the state of California. There were over 22 of these different programs. So with the Promise program, we focus on particular areas. We focus on 4 areas, and we really stick to these particular areas to make sure that we are focusing our efforts and making sure that our students get what they need. We focus on recruiting, on retention, PhD completion, and transition to career. And with recruitment, we visit conferences, we have our own visitation programs, we go to conferences, and we particularly focus in the STEM fields, and so I'll have another slide after this that gives some of the different kinds of conferences that we go to, but we also have networks like the GEM Consortium, the Institute for Broadening Participation. We have professional development as part of our retention programs. So we have success seminars, we have a Summer Success Institute, we have a dissertation house for students who are candidates and who are working on their dissertations. I'll show you some pictures of those kinds of initiatives. PhD completion and then transition to career, where we are doing a program called Profit, Professors in Training, and we're teaching students pedagogy. We're also giving them opportunities to teach in some of the local universities and colleges, including community colleges. With our recruitment efforts, we had Graduate Horizons, which started 2 different initiatives. It actually was the basis of the advanced programs Faculty Horizons for women in STEM, but it also opened the door to have recruitment for graduate students as a whole. When we initially started the Horizons program, the Horizons program brought in underrepresented students for 3 days. And they would come to campus, they would have opportunities to meet with faculty, go on lab tours, have information about the GRE, etc. That was very successful, but what we wanted to do was we wanted to reach a broader audience. And so we expanded it to Summer Horizons. And Summer Horizons is a one-day program where we invite students who are in summer programs anywhere in the Washington, D.C., Virginia, and Maryland area. They might be doing internships at NASA. They might be in summer programs at any of the universities in the area, Johns Hopkins, George Mason. They might be interning at NSF or NIH. They might come from all backgrounds. And so the Summer Horizons program is one that grew out of a small Graduate Horizons. When we had Graduate Horizons, we were only serving about 60 students a year. When we went to Summer Horizons and we opened it up to students of all backgrounds, then we were seeing two numbers in the area, about 200 students. And so this was a really great opportunity for us as UMBC to make sure that we were really starting to train early students for graduate education, giving them information about their statement of purpose, GRE, etc. We also recruit at the SOCNIS Conference, which is the Society for the Advancement of Chicano and Native American Scientists, the National Society of Black Engineers, Society for Hispanic Professional Engineers, the GEM Consortium, and other kinds of conferences. Just to give you a feel for the numbers of students that are served, and this gives just some numbers up through 2009, the different schools that have come to Horizons, students have been from a variety of different institutions, and you can see that in 2008 we had 103 colleges and universities represented at our Horizons program at UMBC, and these were students from all STEM backgrounds, from all races and ethnicities, and we served 220 students that year. And so we have been continuing in that trend to invite students to come to our campus so that we can train them and make sure that they're prepared for graduate education. A lot of the tenets of our program are based on a social science theory from the Journal of Community Psychology called the Psychological Sense of Community, or PSOC. And the 4 elements of psychological sense of community that we try to put into all of our programs are these 4 that are listed here. Membership, where you feel like you belong to a community. We wanted to see if we could create a program where people would feel like they belong, where they felt like they had a home. Influence. Do the people who are participating in our programs feel like they have a level of influence with regard to how the programs are running, with regard to how they can impact the things that are going to be given to them for their future development? Integration and fulfillment of needs. How do they feel like they're participating in the community? And for this one, we learned that fulfillment of needs was not only those professional kinds of needs, but sometimes they were personal needs that needed to be met. And then shared emotional experience, giving the participants an opportunity to bond, to have shared types of experiences. We would have retreats and conferences, monthly meetings, celebrations of milestones in order to achieve that shared emotional connection. And this is based on McMillan and Chavis's work on sense of community. Sarenson actually did some work earlier in that and coined the term. So here's an example of an opportunity that we had, an activity with a shared sense of connection. We have a retreat that it started out in the western part of West Virginia. It was called the Cool Font Recreation Center, or the Cool Font Conference Center, and they had outdoor opportunities, and then we went to Rocky Gap, which is in the western part of Maryland, and in this activity we contracted Outward Bound Professional. People from Outward Bound Professional would come and they would do these team building kinds of activities. And so what you see here on the left is a shelter that they made out of the elements, out of the different leaves and the boughs from the trees. So the idea was if they could survive out in the cold, and this was in March, and we were out in the cold, they were out all day, if they could survive out in the elements where it was cold, where they had to use their resources. The idea was they could use that same kind of teamwork, that same kind of bonding and working together to get through their graduate programs. And so we invite over 100 students to come for a 3-day weekend out in the woods with us for this kind of activity. These are students from all backgrounds, from all ethnic backgrounds, and from all disciplinary backgrounds, so that they can get the chance to know each other, build upon each other's strengths, appreciate each other's strengths, and compensate for different weaknesses. And so it has really been a great experience to have this kind of event. Here's another picture of the event. This was the campfire that we had at night. And one of the reasons why I love this picture is because we had people from all around the world who had come to this retreat. And there was a person who started singing a song around the campfire. He was from India. And we found out that it was the same tune as We Shall Overcome. And I think that it was really interesting that there were people that we found in other places around the world who had very similar songs. And then music was just one of those bonding experiences, because then people started teaching each other songs in other languages, and it was really an appreciation of diversity, appreciation of culture, and a very inclusive kind of activity. The picture on the bottom was this past year where we had another version of the retreat in Columbia, Maryland at a hotel. And the idea here was, again, that we had the team building activities. The Outward Bound group came again, and they gave all kinds of opportunities for a search and rescue kind of event. The nice thing about this is that it did not just include students. It included staff, people from the accounting team, people from who are administrative assistants and departmental assistants. It had faculty. There were deans. All of them were invited and participated in this outdoor activity. And so it built a connection not only between the students, but also between the students, the faculty, the staff, and the administrators. This was very important for us because there was a paper that we did, a monograph for the Council of Graduate Schools called University as Mentor. And the idea of University as Mentor was that everyone on the college campus has an opportunity to mentor graduate students. And everyone had the responsibility to give some kind of mentoring to graduate students in whatever kind of way they could. Maybe it was sharing information. Maybe it was giving encouragement. Of course, the faculty mentor has a major part in that. But it gave everybody a chance to participate in this mentoring activity. Another opportunity that we have is to do retention. And as part of our retention, we really focused on not only social activities, but things that were going to prepare students for their careers. And so we have a program called PROFIT. And PROFIT stands for Professors in Training. And we have seminars for the graduate students once a month, particularly in the fall, where they learn about learning styles, particularly the Kolb model of learning. They learn about that. They learn about clickers and uses of technology in the classroom, and they have a chance to teach at the local community colleges who have partnered with us. The community college will pay the graduate student $2,000, actually it's about $2,200, to teach at the community college in the spring semester. There is a faculty mentor from the community college that works alongside of the graduate student to help them throughout the semester. But that graduate student is the professor of record for that class. This has been very good because UMBC, being a mid-sized institution and being a research institution, has one kind of teaching method, but at the community college there's a different audience, and so there are people who wanted to get that kind of experience as well. And we have found that there are students who want to have a variety of different careers. So there are some people who want to go to large research institutions, there are others who want to go to teaching institutions, some who want to go to community colleges, and some who also want to go to industry or to go to government kinds of jobs, but they might want to teach on the side or become adjuncts because that's their way of giving back, that's their way of really participating with the students. And so we have a training process for that. I should say that the mentors, and we have some of the mentors here on the right side, the mentors also receive a stipend. They receive $1,000 to mentor the students. And so the first year that we did this program, UMBC put up $10,000 to get 10 mentors from the Community College of Baltimore County and pay them $1,000 each to mentor 10 graduate students. The next year's CCBC, or the Community College of Baltimore County, they took the financial responsibility to pay the students and to pay the mentors. And so we gave them the seed money. They continued it from there. And they said that their payoff is that they get great students who are excellent teachers for their students, but they also have a chance to try to recruit them for permanent faculty. This is just another picture to show that we have active learning. There's interaction within the classroom. There is a part where we have the students do some public speaking. They practice their lectures in front of our group first, so they have some peer review before they actually go out and give it to the students in the class. They only do that once, but that's just to give them a level of comfort before they go in front of the classroom. Another activity that we have is the Promise Summer Success Institute. And I was talking to Dr. Duncan and telling him that we have a lot of different orientations at UMBC. We have graduate student orientation for an entire day. That is usually a week or two before school starts, and that's campus-wide. In case there are people who cannot come to the full day's worth of orientation, there's an evening orientation the next week that is usually about 4:30 to about 6:30 p.m. for those people who might be working full-time, those people who were not able to come. So we really try to accommodate our entire graduate school population. But in addition to those orientations which are campus-wide, the departments have orientation within the department. And that's also helpful so that the graduate students are acclimated to the different kinds of things that are going on in their various departments. But on top of that, we have the Promise Summer Success Institute. And the Summer Success Institute is usually about 2 days where we have a full conference. We have it at a hotel, generally when the budget permits. When it doesn't, we have it at the university. But it's a full conference where the students are coming together, and we invite mentors who are mentors in residence. And these are other faculty from other schools throughout the United States. And they come to be mentors to our students. This started as an opportunity, particularly for underrepresented graduate students in Maryland, to get together and to know one another, to get started with their graduate careers. So it gave them an opportunity to meet when they were coming in, but then as they were continuing throughout their programs, it gave them a chance to continue to connect at the beginning of the year. This program has become quite popular, and so we have capacity at 200. There's usually a waiting list. As soon as we announce it, people register right away, and they are able to come. They get professional development. There are a lot of different kinds of seminars for them, and the people who have graduated have now wanted to come back, and so we've added a section called PP&P, which is professors, postdocs, and professionals. And for those kinds of sessions, we talk about managing your career, managing your lab, expanding your reach, and those other kinds of things that will help them in their careers. This is an example of some of the different kinds of activities that we had. Dr. Randall Pinkett was one of our speakers. He was one of the first winners of the Apprentice show with Donald Trump, and he was an engineer by training, and so he agreed to come to be one of our keynote speakers. And then we had one of the anchors from our local Fox 45 News who came to talk about public speaking and overcoming shyness, and we had that videotape so that the students could come up and practice with her and be on tape and be able to see themselves. We've had some other great faculty from other fields. Dr. Juan Gilbert, who's down at the bottom, who is in human-centered computing, who is the chair of the department at Clemson. Dr. Mercedes Franco, who's at Queens College in New York. She's a mathematics professor. We talk about Guaranteed 4.0. Donna Johnson and Ya-Chen Chen have used that particular book to talk about how to get a 4.0 at undergraduate and graduate levels. And then we've had the students who are part of that. We've had Chris Jones, who is there. He was from MIT. He was the assistant dean at MIT. Erica Camacho, who is a math professor at Arizona State. So we have been inviting over the years people from all over the country to come as mentors in residence for our students. This has worked out very well because not only do the students get a chance to network, not only do they get a chance to see mentors who are images of possibility, but has also opened up a way for them to get to know people in terms of talking about future jobs and future opportunities. So there was one student who had a chance to meet with a professor from University of Puerto Rico, Rio Piedras, and that particular professor later became chair of the department, remembered that meeting with the student that she had at the Summer Success Institute, and that particular student, Patty Ordonez Rozo, is now an assistant professor of computer science at UPR Rio Piedras, and that's just one example. We have another student who is now a faculty member at the Naval Academy. We have a lot of these kinds of success stories, and they met people who gave them either networking advice or they connected with people at the Summer Success Institute. One of the things that we talk about at the Summer Success Institute, in addition to the Guaranteed 4.0 and expanding your reach, planning your career, is this idea of academic genealogy. Because we think that it's important for students to have an opportunity to learn about their academic family tree. What is your academic lineage? How many in the audience who are graduate students know where your advisor went to graduate school? And where your advisor's advisor went to graduate school? Okay, only a couple of people. It's really a fun exercise to find out your academic family tree. This idea came because when I was at a conference as a graduate student at Northwestern, I was introduced by my master's advisor, Dr. Janet Rutledge, to her advisor, and she said, I want you to meet your grand advisor. She had all of us in the lab, and she said, I want you to meet your grand advisor. And we were really excited to meet him, finding out later that his lineage went all the way back to Oppenheim and Schaefer. And Oppenheim and Schaefer in electrical engineering, they were the people that started this whole field of signal processing. And so to know that we had a direct lineage to the people who were the founders in our field, that was incredibly exciting. There was another friend that I have, Damian Young, who went to Howard University undergrad, who is now a researcher managing a group at the Broad Institute. The Broad Institute is a research institute on genetics that is a collaborative between Harvard and MIT. I went to his office, I was visiting him, and I saw pictures on his desk, and he's about my complexion, and there was a picture on his desk of a man that looked very much like Albert Einstein. And so I asked him, I said, Damian, you know, I know your wife, I know your children, and I don't know this gentleman, so can you explain the significance of this picture on your desk? And so he explained that that person was one of the founders of his field. He was in molecular biology or something along that line. He does X-ray, I think, crystallography and chemistry, so I'm in the wrong field there. But the idea was that this was a person who had started some of the work in his field, and he had traced it all the way back to Germany through his advisor, his advisor's advisor, advisor's advisor's advisor, all the way back. And he was very proud to have come from that lineage and to know all of the different people that he was connected to in his field. At University of Maryland College Park, I talked about this idea with Nan Bernstein-Ratner, who is the chair of the Department of Hearing and Speech Sciences. And she said that she does the same thing. When she's at conferences, she takes her students to meet her former advisor, and then they talk to their other advisor, and it goes to the family, so people feel like they really have a connection. This is so important because it really gives context to the field. And so I usually even ask students, I say, okay, well, here you are in the middle. Do you know your advisor? Have you read their dissertation? Do you read their CV to know the kinds of experiences that they've had? What about your advisor's advisor? What kind of school did they go to? What kind of culture was at that particular school in terms of things in your field? field, because you need to know that, because that's going to affect your training. So if that particular advisor or that advisor's advisor was part of a lab or a group that really was heavy on statistics, then you will probably have to be really strong in statistics. And so knowing those kinds of things has been very, very helpful, and we've continued to talk about this idea of academic genealogy. The dissertation house is another activity that we have at UMBC. It started again at this retreat, and it has since gone to a conference where we have 4 days where students are able to sit and work on their dissertations. But the interesting thing about this, and you see them here at the top posting their goals for the day, at the bottom, the dean of the graduate school, Dr. Janet Rutledge, is talking to the group. They all have their laptops open. They're ready to work. But we have a mentor coach, and the mentor coach is not a person who is substituting for the research mentor, but it's the person who's helping to guide them through this dissertation process for those 4 days. And so Dr. Wendy Carter-Veal, who wrote a book called Tada, Thesis and Dissertation Accomplished, is one of the people who is the chief coach or the head coach for this particular dissertation house group. And we do this 4-day kind of conference at College Park. We do it at UMBC. We do it at UMB. She has done a version at University of Michigan. We've done one together at Carnegie Mellon. And there are some other schools that we're going to be doing it, where we're going to be doing it in the future. Cornell is going to be adopting a model very soon. But there are people who go through this program and they finish. The idea with the dissertation house is that you can continue to come to these sessions, and we have them about once a semester. We just had one last week because it was part of our winter break. There's going to be another one in the summer. There will be one in the fall. And we say you can come as many times as you'd like, as long as we have space for people who are repeating, and just come until you finish. And one of the nice things about the Dissertation House, we have a website, it's thedissertationhouse.com, and you can see under the blogging that there are people who are blogging about their progress. And they're blogging daily about what they're doing. They talk about the challenges, the ups and downs, and all of those other kinds of things. And so that's really important. I won't spend too much time on this, but I wanted to present this STEM data really quickly just to show that some of these programs that we have seen a definite increase in the trends for our graduates. And so in terms of our enrollments as well as our PhD awards, our PhDs that have been awarded, particularly in natural mathematical sciences and engineering and IT, we have definitely seen an increase. And the increases came after we put these programs in place. I wanted to say briefly about something about support. Our provost, Dr. Philip Rouse, is very supportive of our programs. He participates in our programs. And one of the biggest things that he did that was so helpful is he had a seminar for us. I asked him to do a seminar called Secrets of the Faculty Interview. And in that seminar, for graduate students, he talked about all of the different things that graduate students need to know when they are going for a faculty interview. Some very interesting things like keeping up your research. Even if you take some time off, making sure that you continue to keep a research portfolio, have a lab or some kind of collaboration on the side where you can still get some results and do some experiments and do some research. We also had to look at our priorities because, of course, budget is always an issue. Do we have enough money to actually support some of these activities? And so we've done polls with our students after we've had a number of different activities, and we asked them to vote on which things were most important to them. Some of those things were dissertation house and having a coach. They wanted to make sure that we had money available for that. The Profit program, because it was really stimulating their growth, the Summer Success Institute, etc. And our president, Dr. Freeman Rybowski, he's a mathematician, and he has supported these things. He was named recently 2012, one of 2012 top 100 most influential people in the world. And so we were really excited about that, and that was because of all these different initiatives. At the bottom, you see some of our students who have graduated, and they have finished with their PhDs. These are some of the pictures with their mentors, and so we see results. But as a result of this program, we have then been able to put forth other grants. So the AGEP grant started a lot of things based on the Meyerhoff program, and then the advanced program for all women faculty in STEM came after that. And then we had the Council of Graduate Schools Awards to serve all graduate students throughout the university. We've helped professors to get career awards, and then there are other awards that have come in addition. I want to talk about obstacles to graduating and finishing the PhD. These are some of the results that we found when we've done some of our research. And this was published in 2 papers. One of them was our book chapter on pathways for African American women, but the other one was on the Promise program as a whole and the different kinds of things that we've done. And we looked at students from all 3 universities, from UMBC, College Park, and UMB, and we found some trends. And these were some of the obstacles that graduate students said were the things that almost kept them from graduating. All of the people in our survey had already finished. So they finished their PhDs. They were now in postdocs, in faculty positions, working in government, etc. But they went back and reflected on those things that had come up where they said, I can't do this anymore, I'm going to drop out. And so isolation, depression and stress, feeling overwhelmed. Pregnancy was one of those things where they were trying to decide whether or not they were going to return or whether they were going to drop out. Misunderstandings with advisors. So in some cases, people had condescending advisors. A new advisor or a change of advisor, a difficult advisor. Sometimes there was lack of preparation. Lack of attention to understanding of their own personal learning styles. They needed to improve study habits, needed to look at time management. These were some of the obstacles. Then, in some cases, they felt that they were out of touch with their family, their friends, other people who were not in graduate school, and trying to juggle that was very difficult. Finances, the imposter syndrome, and this is based on Clance and Imes' work, where there are people who are very capable, very intelligent, but frequently will feel as if they are not worthy to be part of a group, and therefore they it's sort of like a self-fulfilling kind of thing. They don't necessarily raise their hand in class, they might not necessarily participate because they feel that they're not worthy, even though they are, but it affects their performance. Family illness, family death, personal illness. Sometimes the type of project was not the right type of project that they really wanted to do. And then sometimes there were mismatched, unrealistic expectations related to the research that they wanted to do. So they came in thinking they were going to do one thing, and the project was actually something else, or they weren't able to do what they wanted to do. And then time to degree was just taking a while. So these were some of the obstacles that were identified as barriers for people going through graduate school. When we looked at some of these barriers, and particularly those related to issues with advisors, we found some trends, unfortunately, of inequitable treatment. And it's hard to sometimes look at yourself to see what is happening. So we looked at what was happening with us. We looked at some of the conferences that we were going to and talking to graduate students there. So I was going to conferences all over, talking to them about their different ups and downs, their different challenges, and these were some of the things that were coming out, things that were happening in their groups. When students were omitted from group meetings, maybe some of the students were invited to a group meeting, but the other ones were not told. Sort of a secret email, secret society kind of thing. That was happening in some groups and some labs. When a student was given a new space, and that space was either in a different room, in a different area, off to the side, but not in the group with all of the other graduate students. So sometimes a person or a faculty member thought that they were doing something that was okay by maybe giving a student what they thought was a larger space or a space that was off to the side, but it was really isolating them from their peers. And so that wasn't a good practice. Isolating students, so there were a couple of cases where a faculty member would have all of their students go to a conference except this one student over here. And those kinds of things were not good practices. Another thing that we've seen is when faculty members have made assumptions about what a student wants to do, about the kinds of opportunities that they should have, and then they don't give that information to the student because they think, oh, they don't want that kind of internship. Oh, they really want to work this summer, so I'm not going to give them that information about the job. As opposed to giving them the information, letting the student think about it for themselves, and then having the dialogue together to see if it's going to work out in terms of the plan that's put forth. So some of the warning signs that we have seen, and it's interesting because when you're a mentor yourself, you sort of wonder, okay, am I actually doing some of these sometimes? Some of the warning signs: if a professor is not responding, there's a sort of non-response behavior, a lack of content in their advice, little to no comments on the product. These are warning signs that maybe something is not going well and there needs to be more of a conversation to see if there are opportunities to really come back together. Lack of verbal communication. When there's a lack of communication and there's avoiding confrontation. But some of the good signs are when students are given more responsibility, when they're put in charge of projects or labs, or undergrads given the opportunity to mentor themselves, when there are new cohorts that come in and those students who are more senior are put in charge of those new cohorts, when the students are recommended for awards, recommended to go to meetings, etc. And so for faculty, these are some of the things that sometimes students think that they know, but they don't know. Or faculty think that they're communicating, and sometimes these things are not being communicated. What is the faculty member's work style? Is that something that has been communicated? How do they want to have communication? Do they want you to send them email? Do you want to have face-to-face communication? Do you want phone calls? What kind of workload performance? Do you expect reports at the end of the week? What about the result style? What kinds of times of day are you looking to have results? And we tell students that they should ask their faculty members these questions so that everybody is on the same page. Because sometimes faculty members think that they're communicating information, or students think that they have heard their faculty member give their information clearly, but there's been a disconnect and that information really hasn't come across. We have a session every year called When Faculty Say X, They Really Mean Y. And this particular session is a dinner session that usually has over 100 students who come. We have a faculty panel, and in the faculty panel, the faculty get a chance to really say what their expectations of students are. And it gives them a sense of strength, sort of a bonding experience between the faculty who are on the panel, so they can really speak their minds. They don't hold back to say what they expect from students, what things they're disappointed in, what things they really want to see. On the other hand, the students get a chance to ask questions, and we initiated an anonymous kind of way to ask the questions. The students submit questions anonymously online, and then we post the questions on an overhead so that the faculty can see it and they're able to answer it, but the student doesn't have to feel like they're being picked out of the crowd to answer the question. And so we have suggested that for our faculty peers to explain all of these different things, invite feedback to make sure that their students are understanding, but don't infer that they already fully understand unless they have agreed and you've agreed that everybody is on the same page. So what are some best practices? And these are some things that students have said have been best practices of their mentors. They felt like that person really wanted them, and that was important to them. That they liked the research that was going on. They worked well together in the lab. There was an open and inclusive lab. There were enough personalities in the lab where there were connections between people. It was a welcoming environment. So when new people came in, the senior people in the group welcomed them in. They acclimated them to the different equipment. They told them about all the things they needed to know in order to be successful in that group. It was a collaborative environment. There were students from all over the world, and they learned everyone's superpowers. I talked a little bit about this with my hosts, and with superpowers, everyone has something that they're strong in. So everyone is in graduate school. They all were admitted for a reason, because of their qualifications, because they have the ability to do the work. There are some people who have strengths in different areas. It might be in statistics. It might be in a computer program. It might be in encouraging. It might be in organization. So there might be some of these other kinds of strengths that they have. The importance in this case was that the faculty member acknowledge all of those strengths, no matter what they were, whether they were personal kinds of strengths or professional strengths, and then utilize those strengths so that it helped the group. So everyone had something, everyone was acknowledged for whatever that strength was or that superpower was, and then the faculty member would acknowledge all of those, and everyone in the lab knew who the go-to person was for those kinds of things. And so some of the best practices for faculty mentors' actions were to equip students with knowledge, to appreciate and build their strengths, understand the weaknesses, but then address those weaknesses with opportunities or ways to improve them. validating the students, and then making sure that there's time with the student. That's one of those things that students always want to have. They want to have that time with their advisor, that time where they can get feedback and really know how they're doing. I also want to mention mentoring extensions, and I don't know if this is as clear, but one of the things that we found in our research was that students had other kinds of mentors in addition to their faculty mentors. There was pipeline mentoring, where not only were they receiving mentoring from their faculty member, but they were also mentoring other students. So they were mentoring other students who were undergraduate students, they were mentoring newer students who were in graduate school, and then there was multi-level mentoring, where they were getting mentoring from a lot of different sources themselves. They were getting mentoring from faculty, they were getting mentoring from faculty at other schools, and other places like conferences, for example, and then the university as mentor. And then in the black box, you see some of the places where some of the students who were in this particular study of African American women were getting their mentoring. They were still getting mentored from their professors at their undergraduate institutions, and that was very valid for them. Some of the other kinds of things, even outside of the university, women in business, for example, family members. I want to sort of end with, or get closer to the end, where I talk about some stellar mentors. This is Dr. Michael Summers. And Dr. Michael Summers is an HHMI, Howard Hughes Medical Institute professor at the University of Maryland, Baltimore County at UMBC. And he has had several students come through his lab. People love going to Dr. Summers' lab. They know they're going to work hard. They know that they might be there weekends. They know that they are going to be in lab all the time, and they might not have a chance to do some social things. But they clamor to get into his lab because they know that all of the students publish, they know that all of the students come out really learning their science, and they know that they all get these fabulous opportunities to then go for their career paths. They like the idea of the family atmosphere. Dr. Summers also has a retreat for his students. He takes them all on a ski trip every year, and that's one of their bonding experiences. The students publish. The students will say, he equipped me with skills. He gave me confidence. And these are students from, again, all backgrounds who are trying to get into his lab. There's a student now, African American woman, who is just talking about how she is so glad that she got a spot in his lab because there were so many people who wanted to get in. And he is helping her now with her faculty interviews. He's looking over her teaching portfolio, going through her all of her different things that she needs to submit to the different universities who she's going to be submitting applications to, etc. Dr. Joseph DeSimone is a faculty member at the University of North Carolina. I met him at a National Academy of Sciences meeting on maximizing solutions for female faculty this past summer. He is a chancellor's eminent professor. He has won so many different kinds of awards, but he has a culture of participation, and this part in the yellow is what he talks about in terms of that culture. Culture of participation in which all group members feel comfortable, confident, compelled to voice their ideas and perspective. And again, one that values differences. And next to Dr. DeSimone in this picture is Dr. Valerie Ashby. Dr. Valerie Ashby was one of Dr. DeSimone's first graduate students. She is now the chair of this particular department, the Chemical and Biomolecular Engineering Department at UNC Chapel Hill. She's a full professor and chair. And these were her words. His way of working with the people he mentors is to see things they can't see for themselves, then to show them how to get there. And then Dr. Ashby has her own group now. She has her own lab, and these are the words of one of her students. She helped me achieve something I didn't think was achievable. And so this culture of mentoring is something that he started in the department. He also helped one of my students to get a postdoc in the department who had graduated with a degree in chemical engineering. And this idea that Dr. Ashby talks about mentoring helps undergrads prepare them for grad school, but graduate students need mentors because the honest feedback is so important. And so these concluding pictures are showing different things that we have learned in terms of mentoring and what things work. Maintaining a collaborative environment. And so I'm here with some of the students from our chemistry department, with some of our faculty members from math. Our dissertation coach is with one of the students who graduated from UMBC. He had gone through dissertation house. So maintaining that kind of collaborative environment has been very important to success. Promoting a culture of mutual academic enhancement. In the picture On the left, we have Steve Helmut and Francis Carter Johnson. They have since graduated. This picture was taken of them when they were presenting together at the Graduate Research Conference. Steve Helmut is now a professor at Cornell College in Iowa, but he also is doing some research at the University of Michigan. And Francis Carter Johnson is now a postdoc at MIT in the Teaching and Learning Center. On the other side, we have Violetta Colombo and Milady Gonzalez, other people who have now gone on and graduated. Milady is now a researcher at NIH. She's there at the bottom with her mentor, Dr. Marisol Khan. And so this culture of mentoring where people are working together and really proud of each other's achievements has been very important. The culture of expanded mentoring where students mentor each other, and it's not competition, but it's helping one another. And so in one picture you have Sly Mosley, who's here with his wife. He was a mentor to Naresh Sankara, who then graduated. They were in organic chemistry. Naresh then went on to Berkeley, and he is a postdoc, and he is now helping to do mentoring programs there as a postdoc. And then finally, promoting an inclusive environment. And this is, again, a picture from that retreat where we had people, and many of the people in this picture have now graduated. And so this is a picture where we are just saying we are making sure that we're doing everything that we can to make sure that it's an environment where everyone can be successful, where everyone can work together, and where everyone can get what they came for. And that's all I have prepared. And I went on a little long, but thank you so much for your attention.
Well, that's not on. So what I'd like to do now, ladies and gentlemen, is open the floor up for questions for Dr. Tull. So if you have to go, I understand, but feel free to ask questions, pose questions to Dr. Tull for the next little bit. So who wants to start? Don't forget, if you can't, push your mic and then speak into the microphone when you pose your question.
Hello.
Hello.
So thank you for your presentation. I have a question about the Profit program.
Yes.
So for the mentors who are from the community college, how are they trained? Is there any training so they know what being a mentor is, or maybe in general, what is your model for training mentors?
Yes, so the mentors from the community colleges are faculty members, and they do have some training that they have there at CCBC. So they have a faculty development center, and they go through training modules and seminars there at the community college before our students get there. Other questions?
Don't be scared. Ask a question.
You mentioned you're doing some work at the quality of life at Pittsburgh. I'm
Yes.
a little familiar with
Yes.
Rory Cooper's work.
Ah, yes, yes.
And I was wondering if you could tell a little more about that.
Okay, so the work that I do with the Qualt Center with Rory Cooper is we have identified students who are interested particularly in robotics and in providing engineering solutions to people with all kinds of abilities. And so we have helped to identify people who want that kind of research and have really put them in that Qualt Center so that they can get their PhDs, they can be postdocs, and they can perpetuate the research. And so I'm a partner in that program of making sure that there are more people who know that this kind of research is available. So we take people from mechanical engineering, from systems engineering, from information technology, and we let them know about this other kind of research area. And then I have a grant to make sure that that research is exported and that we are disseminating that kind of research not only here in the U.S. but internationally. Yes. Question? Oh, okay.
I have a question. You talk about the importance of building the sense of community.
Yes.
I feel like that building the sense of community in this culture is also translating to forming communities of practice. So there's the sense of people go on and they continue to collaborate with one another when they go into their future positions? Are you seeing that happening?
Most definitely, and that's the beauty of it. And so that's sort of where this pipeline mentoring comes in, because now we have students, and they're from all over the world, and now as they're going into their faculty positions, you can see the kinds of things that they're doing with their labs, the kinds of things that they're doing with their students, getting them involved in research early, having them as co-authors on papers, making sure that they're spending time understanding their needs and where their starting points are so that they can lead them effectively. And so we have, even though, and I sort of mentioned that even though Promise started as a program that was for students who are underrepresented, we have students literally from all over the world who now, even as faculty members, might have a group of people who might not even be U.S. citizens, but because they were part of the Promise program, they put Promise on their website and they are inviting people in, and they still become mentors to other people. And it has been really a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. It has helped me a lot also, because I've had a chance to learn about cultures from all over the world, and I have really appreciated that experience. So by opening up the program, we've really been able to understand that everybody has needs. And so often we think that it might just be the women, or it might just be people who are from underrepresented backgrounds, but I tell everyone, I have seen everyone who has had an upsetting experience cry in my office, whether it was because of something that happened with their faculty member, whether it was because they had a death in the family. And so it doesn't matter what the cultural background is. It didn't matter whether it was a male or a female, that everyone had feelings, that everyone, from that human side, we were able to really, I was able to really capitalize on that. And that has been important in the way that we've done things. We've also included a family atmosphere to a lot of the kinds of things that we've done. And so we invite people to bring, whether it's children, whether it's family members or friends or significant others, anyone who is part of their supportive space, bring them to activities. You can bring them to a seminar. You can bring them to the dinners. We've had children running around. We've had women who were planning to, they were pregnant, and then we've had their children all the way through up until 4 and 5 years old, who we've known, since they were expecting. We've had people bring their parents, their sisters, friends, all kinds of people. We always tell them, whoever is part of your system of support, bring them with you so they can be part of this process. Because if they're joined in with you, then they can understand some of the things that you're going through, but they can also appreciate it, and we welcome them in as part of this family as well. And that has been very successful. Yes.
Hi, I'm Rebecca George. I'm in the Statistics Department here at Purdue. Do you have any advice on how to change the attitude of existing faculty that sort of grew up? I went through it, they're going to go through it. They're going to do my dues. I mean, this is changing. I grew up with a very famous faculty advisor. I have a great academic pedigree. He didn't talk about it. He didn't worry about mentoring. You'll be fine. We are now paying attention to it, but we are saddled with faculty who don't think it's important. Any advice?
Yes. I will tell you one of my little secrets. The way that I got around that was to invite those faculty who thought that mentoring wasn't important to be on panels so that they could still give their advice to people in the general audience, and we would tell all the people from their lab to come so that they could get the advice from their faculty members. So it was often that faculty members were thinking, you're just going to do it on your own and I don't have to give you any advice. But we found that they did receive advice from other people. They just didn't realize that it was mentoring. And they didn't realize it wasn't necessarily called mentoring at that point. So we give them an opportunity to mentor their students, but we just put it in a different kind of format. And so when we have the faculty members who are on the panel and we tell them they can say anything that they like, they can give any advice that they like, we found that some of those faculty members who say that they don't mentor or that they don't need to give advice, they give some really good information. And we make sure that their students are right there to hear it. And we reiterate those things. And sometimes I'm a go-between. or I talk to the faculty members, I say, you know what, you have some really good things to share. Is this something that you can tell your students or give it to them in a different venue, or is there something that I can share based on what you've said, and I'll be sure to make sure to give you the credit for this information that I'm going to share, because it's really important. And so those are some of the things that we've been doing with people who might not think that the mentoring is necessary, but yet they're doing it and they just don't realize it in a different way. Okay. Did you have a hand up earlier?
Oh, yeah, I'll go ahead and ask the question. One of the obstacles that you listed was that doctoral graduates had misunderstandings with advisors.
Yes.
And I'm sure sometimes those worked out, sometimes they didn't.
Right.
What's your impression? Is it better, especially early on in a doctoral program, for people to seek a new advisor, or to try to work things out with the one they have?
We try to identify issues early if we and we encourage people to try to continue in the process if that's the area that they really want to do work in. And especially if that particular advisor is the expert and there aren't any other people that they could transfer to, because then they'll miss out on doing that kind of project. There are some people who have decided, I'm just going to switch fields altogether. We've had people switch entire departments altogether. One person switched from mechanical engineering to chemistry because she wanted to work with, in this case, Dr. Summers, and said, I really want to work with him so badly, I will learn chemistry to work with him. And so we encourage people to try to figure it out early. If they're later in the stages, we try to make sure that they have a co-advisor if there's something that's not working out. And we also try to mitigate some of those risks by making sure that they have a really good balanced committee. So sometimes it depends, but it takes some navigating. Okay.
Yes. Right before you ask your question, as you all leave out, if you can please make sure that you complete this survey that's on the goldenrod sheet. So I just want to mention that. Sorry, go ahead, Miss.
You've mentioned 3 levels of mentoring.
Yes.
Mentoring. How did you guys go about mentoring or encouraging your grad students to mentor your undergrads because of the competition piece? But also because grad students always feel overwhelmed with the amount of coursework and research and things that they're involved in. How do you get them encouraged or involved? Do you entice them with funding, or?
So we didn't do anything to encourage them to mentor undergrads at all. They picked that out on their own. There were some labs where they had undergraduate researchers in the lab, and the graduate students were given the responsibility to mentor those undergraduate students as part of the lab culture. So that was the case in some areas, but for many of the graduate students, they wanted to give back, and they were on their own looking and seeking opportunities to participate in some kind of mentoring where they could share with undergraduate students how they could move forward into the next stages.
And I'm sorry, I had a second question. You mentioned a book from your DH mentor coach?
Yes, Tada.
That is the name of the book?
Thesis and Dissertation Accomplished. I don't know if it's still in print. I think you can still get the Methods Journal, though, on Amazon, but that's what it's called. Okay.
Question.
Yes.
In your presentation, you mentioned shared emotional connection.
Yes.
And as an emerging scholar, as an SROP alum, my research is very oriented towards what's going on in these types of programs. So I'm wondering, could you give me any advice on how to research the connections of shared emotional connection to the actual outcomes of these mentoring programs?
Okay, in the psychological sense of community work, there are these different metrics that are used in the paper. It's easier to sort of go back to the literature to get the different measures because there is an index. And the index has these different questions. So there's an instrument that you can give to the students, and it has these different questions that ask them about shared emotional connection. But they ask the questions in certain ways, and then the index has different kinds of metrics, and then you can do calculations, etc. So there are measures for this that I didn't present, but they do exist as part of that sense of community index. And I think the most popular one that they're using is the Index 2. Okay.
Any
Okay.
other questions? Well, before we leave, I'm going to share a couple things with you. And that is my hello. And that is that. First of all, let me thank everyone for attending today's event. That's number one. And so the second thing, the MAP program, we'll be having an event next month, and so we'll be sending out an email to that effect, introducing or announcing that event. In addition, if you want the PowerPoint slides, which I imagine are okay to disseminate, these slides, what are they?
We can work that out. Yes.
We'll work something out with the slides. I'll consult with Dr. Tull about that. And so, also, if you know someone that will benefit from today's presentation, or if you would like to see it again, it will be posted on the MAP website. And I can write that down so you all can have that. You can be aware that now in a few days. That is www.map.yddae.purdue.edu. So again, if you want to see, we take today's presentation. If you want to see it, or if you have peers or colleagues that are interested in it, it will be posted to this website for future viewing. And also, again, please fill out that survey. So, again, can we give Dr. Tull one more round of applause? Thank you for all coming out, and if you happen to be a grad student,